Lafayette City Expats Club is a non-profit social organisation and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by the speaker today.
So Roger Potts' talk today is, I've been through the desert in a hearse with no name, about a road trip. Roger's given wonderful talks already, one on his service and one on surviving a hurricane. So we're very lucky that he's put his hand up to give a third talk, and he's still got a couple more talks in him. A third talk on, his preferred title is Have Hearse Will Travel. And I was going to bring up the lyrics and get you all to sing, I've been through the desert in a hearse with no name. I've been through the desert in a hearse with no name. It felt good to get out of the rain. See, I sing because then you're really glad when I stop and I actually get Roger up to give the talk. So come on up, Roger, and enlighten us about Have Hearse Will Travel.
Good morning. When Ren first told me about this hearse thing, I've been through the desert, I was in Vietnam when that song came out. So I'm looking at him like, what are you talking about? I have no clue what you mean by the hearse in the desert. So I had to look up this song and I realized, oh yeah, I know that tune, but I didn't know the song. So my original title was, Have Hearse Will Travel, based on a Western thing. When I was a kid, it was Have Gun Will Travel. So that was going to be the title of my thing. Anybody remember Have Gun Will Travel? Paladin, all dressed in black. He actually handed out business cards that said, I have a gun, I can solve your problems for you. It was really crazy. Okay, why this story? This story is not special. All of you here are world travelers. You wouldn't be or you wouldn't be here, right? I mean, so this is not a special story in relation to I've done something really crazy that you guys have not done. But one of the reasons I wanted to do this is I wanted to spur and trigger your memories for things you may have done, crazy trips you may have taken when you were a kid too. I mentioned this, is Bob from Monday Morning Breakfast, is he here this morning, Bob? I mentioned this at the Monday Morning Breakfast and gave a thumbnail sketch of what I was going to talk about today. And it reminded one of the guys at the table of a trip that he took when he was a kid going from England to Holland. And their friend in Holland put them in a ship overnight. They could sleep in the boat. The problem was the owners of the boat were not told about it. So when they showed up the next morning in their limousine, here was Bob and their friends sleeping in a boat that the owners didn't know about. And of course, the owners didn't know what they were doing there either. It turned out the owners of the boat were the parents of the kids that he were coming to visit. But I mean, that's the type of thing that I'm hoping triggers your memory of trips that you took and you can be thinking about this week. Okay, what triggered this whole thing? What prompted this? What was the seed for this? I was in the University of Hartford in the mid-'60s, and we basically lived in a fraternity house. And this Chinese kid, now this is not a real picture. There's only 4 real pictures in here from the time. Because when guys took trips, they didn't take pictures. We didn't have, like the phones today, we take 1,000 pictures and eliminate 500 of them. But we had little cameras, that had 12 or 24 shots in it, so we didn't take very many pictures. So most of the stuff comes from the internet. And this is an internet shot. But it gives you the impression of the person that showed up at our door was a Chinese kid that looked like a Chinese hobo. And he came in, and I don't know who even brought him into the house. He stayed there for a period of days, got a part-time job, slept on the floor. He just looked like a hobo, right? But when he left, he told us, he said, if you ever get out to the coast, I live in San Francisco, here's my telephone number. So, we took it with a grain of salt thinking, yeah, right, this poor kid, we're going to go out and visit him in California. Well, as it turned out, about a year later, when I had moved out of the fraternity house, I was now living in a 3-bedroom basement apartment with a couple of black guys. And it was approaching summertime, and I remembered that this kid invited us to San Francisco. So I mentioned to my roommate, Les, the guy on the left over here, who is actually much blacker than the picture there because his face is being shined up by the flash. But I mentioned to him, I said, would you like to go to the West Coast? I've been invited out there. Told him the kid about the kid that stayed in the fraternity house. He said, yeah, sure, why not? So we rounded a couple more guys in Hartford where this took place. And he called his cousin from New York, and he wanted to go, and rounded up 2 more guys from there. So 7 of us decided we were going to go to California on a whim, right? We had a couple of weeks, summertime, in between school semesters, so let's do it. Crazy, absolutely crazy. So we bought a Hearse. Now, this is not the actual Hearse that we bought. I do have a picture later in the presentation of the actual Hearse coming down Lombard Street in San Francisco, but this is real similar to what we bought. I paid $200 for this Hearse, right? $200. I need to change hands. I'm more comfortable with this in my right hand. I paid $200 for the Hearse. We put $50 of used tires on the front because the tires are pretty bad. Now, this was our hotel, basically, for the 7 of us going out to California, and then for the 3 of us that continued on the rest of the trip. We put about 10,000 miles on this rascal. At the time, gas was 30 cents a gallon. It was about almost 3,000 miles to the West Coast. So 4 of the guys that went with us just used it as transportation to get to the West Coast. So I calculated that it cost us $87 to go across to the West Coast. That adds up to about $12 and change for a cross-country trip for the guys that just wanted to go there. That's a pretty good deal for them. Anyway, that's the Hearse. A little strange place to travel. Okay, we took off from New York. We picked up the guys in New York. There were 7 of us, and we just drove around the clock. It took us 3 days to go from New York to California. I don't remember anything we did in between. I just remember that the roads were long, and they went on forever. And where you were not in areas where the interstate was, it was like that place off to the right there. Roads just went straight for hours and hours. So that whole 3-day trip out to the West Coast was kind of a blur. But, we did it. Okay, so we approached California. Now, what did we expect? Remember, there was a hobo on our floor, right? A young Chinese hobo-looking guy on our floor. So we didn't expect much. Now, the other 2 blacks that were with me, they were not in the fraternity house. So only I knew about the Chinese. Only I knew about the connection. So we called our Chinese friend. We had called him before and told him we were coming. And we called him when we got there. And this is what showed up, essentially. Now, again, this is not an actual picture because I didn't take a picture of a Chinese kid, but give an impression here. He showed up in a brand new Olds 98. He had a slick suit on. He looked like some kind of a pimp for somebody with the dark glasses typical of California. And it just blew my mind. Now my 2 black friends didn't see him before, so it was like, yeah, okay, this is the guy. But for me, it was like, whoa, this is the guy that was the bum sleeping on our floor back in Connecticut. It was just a blowaway. Anyway, true to his word, he was the son of a very well-off guy there. And he showed us around, and he would not let us, for the places that he took us, all of his watering holes and all of his special places, he wouldn't let us pay for anything. Up in the upper left-hand corner here, there's a bunch of houses, row houses that you see typical in San Francisco. There was the houses we stayed at were not the color like that. They were white, and they were downhill, but they were 3-story houses just like this. One of them a bunch of them were owned by his father, and he had one that was empty. We stayed in this place for a week for free and slept on the floor, which was only right since he slept on our floor. But for a week, we had cast our bread upon the water, I guess, and we were getting paid back. We did see the sequoias. We saw San Francisco, the Golden Gate. We did our trolley rides and saw the market downtown. He just showed us around. It was like we were living in San Francisco and we had our own personal guide. It was really, really amazing. Okay, there's the real hearse that we took. That's probably my roommate's cousin sticking his head out. I think Les is driving and I came down the hill. This is Lombard Street, if you're not familiar with it. It's a street, famous street in San Francisco that takes a lot of turns all the way down the hill. So that's a trip, that's a picture of the real hearse. My friends picked up a girl there, and you can see the girl. You can also see that Les is a lot blacker in this picture than he was in the first one. But they picked up this girl that wanted to get a ride from San Francisco to LA because that was our next trip. We're going to go to LA. So we took the coast highway down, which was in an old hearse. It was a very exciting ride. It was a very exciting ride. 101, you could easily end up in the bay, quite in the water, off the cliff. Quite frankly, it was an exciting ride. When we got to LA, of course, we did what LA people do, or at least tourists in LA. We acted like kids and we went to Disneyland. I remember going to Space Mountain and just screaming and yelling like all the rest of the kids. And then the next day, we went to Busch Gardens and acted like adults. And we sat down, I earned tons and tons of free beer, and it was a wonderful environment to be in. We decided to continue on south. We went through Tijuana, probably stayed a short while in Tijuana, and went down to Ensenada. This is a picture from Ensenada down in Florida, down in Mexico. By the time we got down here, we were beginning to feel a little vulnerable. We're in a foreign country. We don't have a lot of money. We're driving probably a 10 to 12-year-old hearse, which could break down at any minute. And so we said, we don't need to be down here. So we turned around and went back the other direction. So our next stop on the trip was Las Vegas. This a crazy town. At the time, now it's much more expensive now, but at the time you could stay there for practically nothing. We hadn't slept in a bed now since San Francisco, so it was neat to get a shower and take a nap. But we stayed in a little hotel outside the strip, outside the city, and it cost us $15 for the night. They gave each of the three of us $5 worth of house chips to spend, and we ate like pigs. There was an evening buffet and there was a morning buffet, and we ate and ate and ate, and I'm sure they lost money on us. But that's what we did that day. If you've been to Las Vegas, then you probably also visited Hoover Dam, which is only maybe an hour and a half, 2-hour drive away. Absolutely amazing place to visit. We did stop by Lake Mead to see the other end of the lake, and then we went to the Hoover Dam. We also visited the Grand Canyon, and you can see that's one of the original pictures also of Les looking over the Grand Canyon. And the Grand Canyon was amazing. Anybody not been to the Grand Canyon? Have most of you been to the Grand Canyon? It's an amazing hole in the ground. We wanted, this is really crazy. We showed up at the places, they have mules that go down into the canyon. They walk on those little narrow paths down there. So we walked up to the guy and we said, we want to take a mule trip down, just the three of us. He said, okay, yeah, come on, I'll schedule you. And then we walked into his office and he said, when do you want to do it? And we said, today. And he said, are you kidding me? The next appointment I have is 2.5 years from now. 2.5 years from now. So needless to say, we did not take the mule trip down into the center of the thing. But we enjoyed the Grand Canyon nonetheless. Inevitably, once we left there, we crossed New Mexico. New Mexico is a big, broad plain of nothing, and we got the inevitable red generator light. Considering how many miles we'd already put on the car, and considering the year of the car, I guess we shouldn't have been too surprised. So we pulled into the next small town, and believe it or not, this guy had a small garage. I mean, like a one-bay garage, gas station thing. And we told him what our problem was. He said, no, I think I have a Buick generator that might just fit that. He put the Buick generator, it cost us $50, and we were back on the road. Unbelievable. Couldn't believe it. Okay, we drove across Texas for the next 2 weeks. At least East Texas just went on forever and ever and ever. It was the same as going across Kansas, Nebraska, and then across Utah. I mean, the roads were just long and flat, and there was nothing to see. And our next destination, of course, was New Orleans, because we didn't stop anywhere in Texas at all. Now, in New Orleans, we got our first lesson in bigotry. Now, I was raised in Hartford. I lived in a neighborhood full of ethnic people, Italians, French, English, Irish. There was a black section of town, and I never encountered a black. But my mom, who raised me, never prejudiced me against blacks. So I was not really, except in the newspapers and in school, I was not really aware of this concept of bigotry. So we show up in New Orleans, and our goal there is just to sit down, have a drink, and enjoy some wonderful Dixieland jazz. I love Dixieland jazz. That's one of my 3 music favorites, so I was really looking forward to this. So we walk over to this place that looked like the one on the right here, you know, with the swinging doors, and there's a barker outside, and he's barking people. It's a happy hour. There's wonderful girls inside. Come on in and cool off and have a drink. So I said, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Let's do it. I walked in, and he closed the door in front of my 2 black buddies, which I thought, okay, I said to him, I said, those 2 guys are with me. And he said to me, well, they can't come in here. I said, well, yeah, but they're with me. I mean, I was really naive. I was really naive. And I said, but they're with me. I mean, we've been traveling together. They're with me. We just want to sit down. They can't come in here. And it finally dawned on me, they can't come in here because they're black. And we're in New Orleans. We're down south. So I said to the guy, I want you to tell me why they can't come. I'm finally figuring this out. And I figured he's not letting them in because they're black. I said, tell me, I want you to say with your mouth that they can't come into your place because they're black. He would never do it. He just said, well, you know, they just can't come in here. So we didn't get into that place. We tried to sit at an outdoor bar, and they wouldn't seat us. So we had to get beers and walk down the street. That's as much as we got. We heard some Dixieland coming out of some places, but that was as far as it went. So we left New Orleans a little bit discouraged. I was angry, quite frankly. I was really upset. I wanted to punch this guy for at least not being willing to say, they can't come in here because they're black. He wouldn't say that. Really, really bothered me. Anyway, we go launching off, and we're on the way home because we have no other places that we want to stop. So sure enough, in the middle of the night in Mississippi, we are stopped by a state trooper in a small town. My black friend, my roommate, Les, had been driving. We stopped at a 7-Eleven type place, and we switched places, and I was driving. And so 2 blacks are asleep in the back of the hearse. And I see the blue light. I pull over. I'm kind of disheveled. We haven't washed in a long time. I mean, we look pretty nasty. But I remember the words coming out of the state trooper just as clear. And I apologize if I offend anybody here, but this is what he said to me. And this is 3 a.m. We are standing right by the window where 2 black guys are sleeping. My roommate had just been driving 30 minutes before, and he says to me, as he's walking up to me, I thought you was a nigger. I was going to arrest your ass. That's what he said. Talk about lesson number 2 in bigotry. I was so stunned, I can't believe that I actually kept my composure, and I said, no, sir, we're just kids going back to college. And all he said was, well, slow down in the towns. Don't go rushing through town like that. If my roommate had been driving 30 minutes before, we'd all be in the slammer in Mississippi. Who knows how long it would have taken to get out. Boy, talk about a lesson. You learn a lot on the road outside of school. I learned a lot in those last 2 days. Okay, by the time we got to Atlanta, we're running out of money, so I called home, and Les called home. We had some money wired to us by Western Union. And that was pretty much the end of the trip, and we went home after that. I've got a page here of lessons learned. It's not unreasonable to learn a lot of stuff when you go on a trip like this. You do crazy things when you're young. I mean, think about it. We bought a hearse. Can you imagine Thais traveling anywhere in a hearse? I mean, think about all the ghosts that must be lingering in that space. So anyway, just to rent a hearse and just to go out to the West Coast on a whim, we had no idea what was going to go on out there. Okay, and we just took off. It was wonderful. In America, you were free, and with just a little bit of money in your pocket, just minimal resources, you could go all the way across the country. So we did. You can't judge a book by its cover. The bum that sat on or laid on our floor turned out to be a very rich kid's son, and he treated us well in California. Who would have known, right? Cast your bread upon the water. Cadillacs run well. Like I say, we ran 10,000 miles. The only trouble was that battery, and the car cost us $200. I mean, how can you beat that, right? It wasn't really an American Cadillac. It was a Canadian version of a Cadillac. It was called a Meteor, but it looks like a Cadillac, and you could tell that it was. Hoover Dam was quite a project. You can see a lot on a dime. We spent very little money. Like I said, it cost $87 in gas just to go across the country, so I'm sure we didn't spend a whole lot more than that. All we did was eat. Our hotel, except for the stay in San Francisco and the one night in the hotel, our hotel was the Hearse. It's very convenient and very cheap when you can just crawl into the back of your car and go to sleep. Okay, you can live well when others are paying. Las Vegas was evidence of that. I mean, you can really stay. It's expensive now. You can't stay as cheaply now as you used to, but you used to get free shows, free coins. If you showed up there with an airline ticket, I mean, they really treated you well. Las Vegas was a place where, based on other people's gambling, if you didn't gamble, you could live really well. It's a big country. We drove for hours and hours and hours in a straight line. Big country. There's a movie out there called It's a Big Country, Gregory Peck, and it is. It's definitely a big country. San Francisco is one of the most beautiful cities I've ever seen. It's unfortunate what's happening to it politically out there, but as a city goes, physically, it's just a shining light on the hill as far as the city goes. Surrounded by water, the Golden Gate's beautiful. It's just a neat place to be, a nice place to visit. The Grand Canyon is definitely grand. Bigotry is real and scary. It was very scary. When that police officer said that to me that night, I mean, your heart freezes. Your heart freezes. You realize, wow, I'm in a dangerous place here. I'm in a dangerous place. It's also good to get home. Okay, and that's all I have. Are there any questions? What the time frame? Yeah, it's about the mid-60s. I think I was in my second year of my 2-year program at the University of Hartford. I went to a different college, and the guys that I was staying with, one of the things I really regret is not staying closer to my 2 black roommates. They're probably the 2 of the nicest guys, the friendliest guys, the easiest to get along guys that I've ever met. I used to love to sit with Les because he had this wonderfully large tummy. And he would sit and he would rest his arms on his tummy, and he was soft-spoken, intellectual. It was great. So it was the mid-60s. That's when it was. Any
other questions?
And if any of you have little stories, if you can tell your little nutshell stories of crazy things you did, take this time to do it as well.
Roger? Oh. No, I just wanted to mention, I'm sure you had a great trip and brought back some memories to me, considering that I have lived both in San Francisco and New Orleans.
Well, there you go.
But the thing about, you mentioning about Louisiana, it doesn't have anything to do with bigotry, but I do recall that was when I went to work there. It was my first job as a federal auditor. And one of the things I discovered about Louisiana is corruption is rather prevalent. And In fact, the story I'm going to tell doesn't deal with vagary, but the people might appreciate it. But the governor of Louisiana at one time was named Edwin Edwards. And after his term of office, the federal government indicted him and wound up with a not guilty verdict from a Louisiana court. And he decided to run for governor again. And a reporter asked him, says, well, Governor, do you think you can get elected considering that you've been charged with a crime in federal court? He said, son, the only thing that'll keep me from being elected the governor of this fair state of Louisiana is to be found in bed with a dead whore or a live boy.
Amen. That's Louisiana. That's Louisiana. I did my basic training in Fort Puke, Louisiana. Yes, I appreciate that.
Is it on? Yeah. Okay. Roger, I remember you from 20 years ago, and we just moved back here, and your shape is much better these days.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now I can go home and eat.
I'm curious, Roger, with the group that we have here today, how because your story here relates a lot to the United States, and I wonder how many people here came here from the United States. If you'd raise your hand, I'd appreciate it. Okay, well, it's a pretty good number. It kind of surprises me. It seems like the U.S. Expats are fewer here than it used to be. But in any event, your story brings back wonderful memories. What was the fraternity that you belonged to?
Actually, since it was a 2-year program, we didn't really have a name for the fraternity. If we did, I don't remember it. It's just a bunch of guys that went to the school. We decided to rent a house, and we called it a fraternity. That was the thing to do. You lived in a fraternity house, right? So this is a house that a bunch of college guys lived in it. We called it a fraternity house.
I get it.
And I know we actually did have a fraternity. I know we had letters, but I don't remember what they were.
Yeah, okay. One of the things that we did when we took road trips, which being in the Midwest, usually revolved because my group of 11 other guys, we were all hunters and fishermen. And so we always carried a tent in one of the cars, and we all had guns, shotguns, that we hunted pheasants and geese and ducks with. And sometimes some farmer's turkey or a chicken would get in the way. But in any event, we had our own methods for obtaining gas, and they were unique. But we never wanted for a place to sleep. If we ever found ourselves in a situation where we needed a place to rest, we'd go to the cop station. And we always knew that they would let us sleep there in their jail free. And we did it many, many times. And, it was just creativity. Yeah. But I just wonder if the other people here from other countries did similar things when they were in college. I'd like to hear about it, because it seems like we really had a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, it was very convenient to crawl in the back of the hearse. Like I say, the only time we rented a hotel was Las Vegas for one night, and we stayed in the San Francisco place that was provided for us. Other than that, we're talking about a 2-week period. We slept in the hearse. It was very comfortable. It was free. You could just park it on the side of the road, park it anywhere you wanted to, and you just go to sleep. That's good. It's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Quite an experience. I was just wondering, when you were staying in San Francisco, did you get to Haight-Ashbury or Golden Gate Park?
I'm sure we did. That's not one of the memories. Actually, the memories of San Francisco were going down this street, seeing the giant redwoods across the San Francisco Bay and the other side of the bay. They were mind-blowing. To see a tree that's as big as this room was like unbelievable. To drive a car through a tree, how mind-blowing is that? So Yeah, those are the things that I remember. Plus, I remember the house specifically. I remember all of houses that we lived in. The other thing that struck me about San Francisco is how afraid they were of the law. Because if we walked down the street, if we approached a corner, every car coming in every direction would completely stop. It was the craziest thing, because I live in the East Coast. If you approach the corner, the car is going, all right, we got somebody else to run over. And here I am in San Francisco and approaching the intersection, and all the cars are stopping. It was a mind-blowing thing. So that's one of the things I remember. Do I remember at Haight-Ashbury? I'm sure we visited it. I don't remember that. I'm sure we visited down the marketplace, but I don't remember.
Good morning. Thank you, Roger, for bringing us such wonderful memories of good old America. I'm a bit younger than you, but I did most of this road trip in 1980, which is about 45 years ago, with my family. I was a teenager now. And apart from the cost, okay, what would you say, America has changed a lot. Apart from the cost, what would you say are the major differences between a road trip in 1965 and a road trip I would take today, 2025?
Well, for sure, you would not be able to just park your car anywhere and sleep in it. I understand even in the rest areas on the highways now, you can't sleep overnight. You can't just sleep in your car without getting stopped by a policeman. I would say, and it's much more dangerous if you're stopping any place. So I would say security-wise, we didn't even think about security. We just went. But today I would be very conscious, especially going through cities, especially stopping in places and sleeping overnight. I would be much more conscious of security. The prices would be absorbative, but I still think driving a hearse, even today, driving a hearse cross country would be a really cheap way to live, because I think hotel prices have gone through the roof. You can stay in some nice Airbnbs, but that takes a lot of planning. When you're a kid, you don't plan, you just do. I mean, that's what you do, you're compulsive. So we just went. So I think probably the biggest change today would be security.
Hey, Roger. I mentioned to you before the meeting that I took a 10,000-mile road trip also. Mine was in 1971, and it was mostly alone. I had two friends in college, and we all agreed while we were in university that we were going to pick a motorcycle trip. You know, we'd watched Easy Rider, and, you know, we just had to take a motorcycle trip.
That was going to be cool.
And unfortunately, one of them dropped out of RPI after only 1 year and went back to the farm. And the other one dropped out later, but neither of them, as far as I knew, was at least the one that I was still in contact with, he didn't buy a motorcycle. So when I graduated, I had a motorcycle, and I was like, no, I don't know if I want to go alone. I mean, you know, the part of the fun you had was your buddies, and so. And on top of that, New York State had taken my driver's license away for being a bad boy. And so I had gone to New Jersey and gotten a license by lying a little bit, but they only gave you a temporary license, and it had expired. So now I'm without a license, I got a motorcycle and nobody to go with. And my brother said, well, why don't you go down and tell them that you never got the license in the mail, because I'd given them a made-up address, and I tried using a forwarding to get that to actually get to me. It never did. So I went down there, and I had to lie again, and I had to say that I hadn't moved, and that I hadn't been suspended or anything in any other state. So, and they gave me a temporary license. I think it was either 60 or 90 days, and the next day I left, and it was upstate New York, and I left, and I did 10,000 miles in 4 weeks on the back on a Honda 350, which is not a very big bike, but I had some of those same experiences you did: the Grand Canyon, the Coast Highway, I didn't run across any bigotry, and I didn't run across any terrible cops, except for one that wanted to give me a ticket for using the cones on a construction site as a slalom course in the middle of the desert because it was boring, you know, how straight those roads were. If you can imagine sitting on a Honda 350.
I would never have taken the trip alone.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine doing that.
And I met a couple interesting folks along the way, including in the very beginning, the first day, I met a really tough-looking, nasty-looking Harley guy. And if any of you guys paid attention to 1971, Harley guys were something to be worried about. And he invited me to crash for the night at his house. And he said, "Oh, me and my old lady will let you sleep. You can sleep on the couch." And I get there, and this tough Harley guy had a black wife or girlfriend, or old lady as he called her back then, which was also a shock to me, living in sort of white upstate New York. But yeah, and as far as the other question, the other guy asked about modern road trips. A friend of mine just outfitted a regular van, not an overly big vehicle, you know, just sort of a little bit bigger than a minivan, and with a bed. And he joined one of these nationwide gym, like I don't remember the name of them, but there's a bunch of chains where you can go and work out, is their intention at any gym across the country. Well, they all have showers, so and you can park for free nowadays in Walmart parking lots. Walmart almost encourages it because they figure you'll come in and buy stuff. So it's not too hard. In fact, I'd recommend it, except that I haven't been able to do it because, you know, my wife has to take a shower twice a day. So, and if anybody's got a Thai wife here, they probably know what I mean.
Any more questions before I get off? One more over here.
I realize how difficult it is now to go to America, but we went in the 70s, and we went with the first flight of a very cheap airline from Brussels to New York. And I said, "Oh, I don't want to stay in New York." We went to Trenton, and then we managed to buy an old camper from California for $3,000, and we went through America. And it was very easy to sleep in the national parks, in the Smoky Mountains and so on. And the only place where the police sent us away was in front of the White House. I have no idea why, but then we went to some places in Washington, and I looked, all the black people looked at us. I said, "Oh, where are we now?" But it was very easy to travel, and we went all the way in Nashville. There we were robbed. It was an old car, but they stole the radio from the camper on my birthday. Oh, also special. We went to Nashville, and my birthday is the 22nd of May, and we were too late. I said, "Oh no, I'm too late for my birthday." But then we went in a pub in Nashville, and the hour changed. So we still had my birthday in Nashville with all the songs and so on. It was marvelous.
Yeah,
but then we were robbed.
Nashville's a beautiful song.
I can remember it was very easy to have insurance from the AAA, and I always had to do a collect call to Mr. Cliff Niles because of the money. So in the end, when we were back at home, we got the money, and we were so used to the camper that we put it on the boat back to Belgium, and we went with the Greyhound bus to Canada and so on. And then we got our camper in Belgium, but it was impossible for all the changes, so we sold it for the same price, I think. But it was a very nice trip, except that we wanted to go to California, but then it was the year that they have shortage of petrol. I don't know why. There were long queues on all the petrol stations. I think 75, something like that.
Yeah, 73.
73,
yeah, 73,
okay.
there was a big...
Yeah. So we decided, okay, we go Florida, and we were on the Keys, and then we had the same problem. There was no petrol at all. Very strange. But it was a nice memory, and very easy to travel then, and cheap.
So I am prompting you to think. This is good.
Hi, is it working? Yeah, it's working. Yeah, I went to America back in the 80s, 90s, I think. It's a 6-city tour, I think. New York, Las Vegas, all the usual, Los Angeles, etc., etc. Not the best way to see America, because it's a tour where you're a few days in each city, you don't know anybody. So, but on my own, I once, apart from going on a ship from Miami, I drove from Miami to Key West, and that was another holiday. And I've got to say, it's one of the most beautiful drives I've ever had. I don't know whether most of the Americans here have probably done that. I was on my own and I drove across all these beautiful islands, and then you get to Key West, and I'm sure the Americans know what Key West is renowned for, but some people may not. However, there's a couple guys in the hotel there, and they're British guys, and I'm on my own, and I get chatting to them, and one of them's the manager of CNA in Oxford Street in London. And I'm trying to get my partner a job, and a few weeks later he goes for an interview, and there he is getting this job in the centre of London for about 5 years, all through meeting people on your travels. Yeah.
Yeah, the road to Key West is like being in a boat in a car, because you're driving over all those bridges and there's water everywhere. Yeah, it's beautiful. Key West is a nice little spot to visit.
I just wanted to mention that there's nothing more precious than going cross-country in the U.S. on a road trip with someone you love and someone you get along with. In my case, it was my son. He was still single. I was unattached. He was moving professionally from Virginia, where I'm from, and to Los Angeles, to Santa Monica. And so I told him, well, I'll come along. So I just took 2 weeks off. We took his car with all his belongings in the car. It was 2 weeks where we took our time. There was no rush. He didn't have a timetable. And it was just, there's nothing when I think of the rest of my life that I treasure more than those 2 weeks. Yeah. And then, of course, I flew back.
As far as I remember, we never had any disagreements between the guys on the van, or in the hearse. I think Les, the gentle giant he was, again, one of my regrets is I didn't stay in contact with him the rest of our lives. It was just a year and a half later that I was drafted and went to the military. And once you go in the military, unless you make a special effort to make contact with the people in the school or whatever environment behind you, you lose track of them. And I'm sorry I did that, because Les was a beautiful person. I think we got along well. I think that's really important. If you're going to be on a long trip, to get along well with the person you're with.
Roger. No, just, again, things will bring me back memories, but, and also this has maybe a little something to do with a road trip. But in this case, again, Louisiana, and I'm driving from New Orleans to Houston, where I had temporary duty. And needless to say, I think that was back when the speed limit was 55 miles per hour. So I'm clipping along probably about 70, 75. And I come upon a car that's, well, they're probably doing about 65 or 70. And I noticed they had out of state license plates, and they were from the New England area. So I pass them. After I pass them, I'm going around the curve under underpass, and sitting on the right side of the road is a state trooper. And of course, as soon as I saw him, my foot comes off the accelerator, and I'm looking over, his hand comes out of the window, and he goes, slow her down, slow her down. The car that I'd passed, they come around, blip, 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 teach them damn Yankees to speed in Louisiana.
I told you. That's what happens down south. Okay, well, thanks for your questions, and I hope I did spur and trigger some memories of things that you had forgotten that you had fun doing.
Thanks. Thank you. Of course, I'm an Aussie, but I went to States in about 84 maybe, and went to the Grand Canyon and drove from LA to Las Vegas and San Francisco and New York and on and on, North Carolina, etc. Oh, and Chicago. So yeah, it brought back memories of that for me, and also memories of road trips in Australia as well. A few stories there I won't go into. So who else who is non-American got memories of visits to America or visits of road trips when they were young, bringing back those sorts of memories, right? Really, yeah, thank you for that. So
You should all write them up in maybe a one-page paper, leave them at the back of the club so that we can pick them up and read them.
yeah, especially if they're
seriously.
incriminating, better do it anonymously, okay? Well, thank you, Roger, for the third talk you've given at the club. Went on its own little road trip, okay? Yeah, thanks again, Roger. And yeah, you can see, like last week's talk, it really made you think about things from your own life, and this activated memories of various road trips and sleeping in station wagons. Not actually a hearse, I must say.